Welcome to Math with Mrs. Cox. We're on Chapter 11, Lesson 8, page 845 in your math book. We're talking about display measurement data on a line plot. So, what this looks like is you have this information over here on the side that we need to organize from littlest to biggest and then put them on a line plot. So let's read the story. 6 friends share several foot-long submarine sandwiches. The table shows the amount each friend ate. Make a line plot of the lengths of the table. So now what you need to do is you need to see how many times each of these appear. And they have this in order from littlest to biggest. So let's look at a fourth. A fourth appears 2 times. A third appears 1, 2, 3 times. And a half just appears once. I like to circle or cross them out so I can make sure I don't forget anything. Now we're going to put an X everywhere we have. And since we've already put this in a number area, we know that a fourth is going to get 2 X's. So we go like this. Try to make sure they're all level with each other so you can see which one has more. 1/3 appears 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And a half appears 1 time. 1 time. Then we add a title to the line plot. We're going to say sandwich length. Sandwich length in feet. Making me hungry. That is what page 1 looks like. Here on example 2, we're going to find out about fair share or divided equally. You can find fair share or the amount each friend would receive if the sandwiches were divided equally. First, add the measurements to find the whole. Then divide the whole by the number of measurements. Let's begin. So here we have all of the fractions that were on the page previous with the sandwiches. We have 2 X's above a fourth, so that means we add a fourth plus a fourth. So that equals 2/4, or simplified, it would equal a half. We had 3 X's above a third, so that's a third plus a third plus a third, and that added together is 3/3 or 1 whole. I like it when it goes to a whole. We have 1 X above a half, so then we just have a half. Now we take all those numbers and add them together. Here we have a half plus 1 plus a half. So then we're thinking about sandwiches. Well, you can probably do this in your head. That's a whole number, and then a half and a half together equals 2 whole sandwiches we're eating. Now, you divide the number of X's on the line plot. So here's our number of X's. We had 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 1 more is 6. So here's our 2 sandwiches, and we have to divide them equally into 6 X's. And so if you work that out, you would see each piece would represent 1/3 of a sandwich. So if the sandwiches were equally divided, each person would have eaten 1/3 of a sandwich. Because heaven forbid anybody else's piece can be bigger than another person's, right? They all have to have the same amount. And that is called fair share. All right, we're going to make a line plot of the measurements in the table, then find the fair share. So we have 2 problems. We have to make a line plot, find the fair share. Okay, so we have to order them from littlest to biggest. Let's see, let's count. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 that are the same, and they're a fourth. And a fourth is smaller than a half. So I'm going to make a little line right here that says 0, so I know where to start. Half would be right there because it's, well, in the half spot. And 1 would be right there. Does that look familiar? And then a fourth would be about right there. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 X's right there. Now I'm going to count my half marks. And I'm going to cross them off just so there's a different symbol than the quarters. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. When you're doing this, you need to try to make sure they're about equal. You don't have to make them perfect, but then that way you can eyeball to see which one has more. Okay, now here's where it gets a little tricky. Now we add them together. I like to add them together by looking at how many are in each category. In this category, I have 4 x's out of a fourth. So that's like saying a fourth plus a fourth plus a fourth. And that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. See, you could do that in your head. So 4 fours equals 1 whole number. Now over here with the half, I'm going to circle these two and these two. The reason why I'm doing that is that I know that this equals a whole number and this equals a whole number. Here's the secret to this lesson. Put bubbles around the fractions that equal a whole number. Then you can come around and just count. 1, 2, 3. So we have a total of 3 whole numbers. Now here comes the next easy part. You count how many x's there are. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you put it underneath the whole number. And that is your answer. 3 whole numbers out of 8. And we can label it a gallon because that is what we're talking about on the juice. GAL stands for a gallon. Okay, I know this is a little confusing. Just stick with me. Lots of steps, but we'll do another one. All right, here is another line plot. First thing we do is we organize them from littlest to biggest. I'm going to make my line plot over here and put a 1 and a 0, or excuse me, just the opposite, a 0 and a 1. Now we need to organize these from littlest to biggest. So I'm looking over here, and I'm going to say the fourth is probably the littlest increment, because if I were to look at a fourth, it would look like that. If I were to look at a third is a little bit bigger, and that's what a third would look like. So a fourth is my littlest increment. So I'm going to put a half, a fourth, except I'm going to move that over just a little bit because I realize I've got to make room for a third. You can tell that's a third because that would be a third and that would be a third. So that's 1, 2, 3. 3 thirds equal a whole. That gives you an idea of how to mark a third. All right, back to our story. All right, so first I'm going to do my fourths. There's 1 fourth, 2, go through all of these, 3, 4. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And looking at these, I noticed something else. I also have a 3 fourths. So that's going to go right about there. All righty, next one I have that I can mark off, maybe I'll use a different color so it's easier to see, is I have a third. That's my next increment. I have 1, 2, let me look to see if there's anything more, 3. Okay, I have 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now my next one I have is a half. I have 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then my final fraction is 3 fourths and 3 fourths. And I have 2 of those. Okay, that helps me organize it in my brain so I can see what's going on. Now comes the part where we need to circle the whole numbers. So I know that right over here on a fourth, 4 of them makes 4 fours, and that is a whole number. So I'm going to circle that because that's a whole number. Now on the thirds, if I have 3 out of 3, then that right there is a whole number too. Okay, then I'm going to look at the halves. Now that makes a whole number. Very good. So now what I have left over, I have 1 half and a 3 fourths. Oh, I have 2 3 fourths. I have a 3 fourths and a 3 fourths. So I have to figure out how many whole numbers I can get out of adding those together. So what you do is you come right here and you find a common denominator. Well, 4 is going to be the common denominator for all of those. And yes, you can stack them like this and add 3 fractions. That'd be times 1, times 1, times 1, times 1, times 2, times 2. Now I can add 2 plus 3 plus 3. And that'll give me that answer right there. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 fourths. And I can definitely tell I can pull some whole numbers out of that. That's pretty top heavy. So I can simplify that into 2 whole numbers. Okay, so I'm going to circle that. So now I have all my whole numbers circled. I have 2 over here. 1, 2, 3. So 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 whole numbers. That is my top number. Now I count the X's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 12 X's. So I have 5 whole numbers, or 5/12 of a foot out of 12 X's. Confused yet? Keep coming with me. We'll figure it out. Now we're going to talk about iced tea in quarts. Again, we need to go ahead and mark our plot line. So we start with a 0, and then we come over here with a 1. Looks like I have a 1/4, an 1/8, and a 1/2. And let's see, what is the smallest? I know that a 1/2 will go about right there, and a 1/4 is in the half of that. Whoops, wrong number. 1/4, and an 1/8, right there. I have to draw him kind of little there. Okay, now let's circle where they belong. Let's see, the littlest one's going to be an 1/8. Let's do that one first. 1, 2. So I have 2 of those. Okay, the next one I have is a 1/4. I have 1, 2, 3. I don't see any more. 1, 2, 3. Next one, I have a 1/2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you kind of have them organized neatly. Take your time on this. All right, that looks very lovely. Now the next thing we need to do is add the whole numbers together. So let's start with our biggest number, the 1/2. I know that a 1/2 plus a 1/2 equals a whole number. I'm going to put a bubble around that. And a 1/2 plus another 1/2 equals a whole number. Now let me think. I know on 8s, 2 8s, if I were to add 1/8 plus 1/8, I'll get 2 8s. And that simplifies down to 1/4. So if I have 1/4 here and then 3/4 there, I can circle all that together and that will equal 1 whole number. So how many bubbles do I have? I have 3 whole numbers. So that's what I'm going to put as my top number. Now let's count the X's, shall we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 X's. There's our fraction is 3/9, but you and I both know that can be simplified down. And we can divide them both by 3. So that's going to be 1/3 is our final answer as our fair share. And we are going to label it quart. Okay, number 4. Amount of sliced turkey per pound. Okay, so you know the routine. Draw a 0 over here and a 1 over here. Let's look at all of our measurements. Whew, we've got a lot of them. I would say our littlest one is going to be an 1/8, but somehow I like to draw this first by drawing a 1/2. There's our 1/2 mark right there. And then we're going to 1/2 of a 1/2 is 1/4. That's a little bit easier for me to do. And then we go right here, and this would be 3 out of 4. With me here? Then, if we were to draw an additional line in between each of these would be called 8s, because look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 marks. So this one would be called 1/8. This would be 2/8, but it simplifies to 1/4. This would be 3/8. This would be 4/8, but it simplifies to 1/2. So that would make this 5/8. This would be 6/8, but it simplifies to 3/4. And then this next one would be 7/8. And then the final one would be 8, 8, but that simplifies down to 1 whole. So we're just going to leave that as a 1. Are you with me here? Now we need to organize these from littlest to biggest, and I like to use colors. So our littlest one's going to be 1/8. Let's find the 1/8. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's it. So there's 4 of them. 4 of them. Okay, our next color, let's do red, is a 4th. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, next color. Let's find an orange, shall we? Oh, I want orange. Come back here. Okay, we have 3/8. 1, that's not orange. I guess we'll stick with it though. 2, 3/8. Let me just double check. I don't see 3/8 anywhere else. 1, 2. All right, 1/2. I have 1, 2, 3. I don't see any more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we don't have too many of the other colors, so let's grab a pretty blue. And let's see, we already did blue. That'll be good enough. It'll be good. So 5/8. Do I have a 5/8 anywhere? Yes, right there's a 5/8, and there's just one of those. Okay, maybe we'll do a purple now. Okay, 3/4. There's a 3/4 there. Looks like the only one, and looks like there's 1 7/8. So we'll find maybe a lime green. That'll be different than what we've used. 7/8. Okay, everything's marked up, and it looks pretty cool if I do say so myself. All right, sliced turkey. Now what we do is we find the whole numbers. Okay, this is where it gets a little tricky. We do know we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There is going to be 16 numbers. So that's how many we're going to put as the bottom number. We got to figure out how many whole numbers we can pull out of this. Okay, so let's do the easy ones first. 4 out of 4 is 1 whole number. So let's do a little tally mark system down here to keep track of, shall we? And then we have, let's take 1/8 plus 7/8 will give us another whole number. Then what do we have left that would be easy to add? We have 5/8, and we could add one of these 3/8 to it, because 5 plus 3 is 8/8. Now it would give us another whole number. Okay, and then we could easily add a 1/2 and a 1/2. That gives us another whole number. Now we have 3/8 over here, 3/8 over here, and a 1/2 and 3/4. So let's add them together. Let's see. This line has 3 out of 8, so let's add 3 out of 8. This line has 1 3/8 plus. And then we have a 1/2 and 3/4. Let's add this first. That would be 6/8. That's not quite a whole number yet. So let's do, we have another 1/2. I'm going to stack them because I like to do them that way. And then we have a 3/4. Okay, let's add those together and see what we can get. We're going to do 8, 8, 8. 4 will go into 8 at least twice. Be 6. 2 times 8 is 4. Times 1 would be 6. So now we're going to add 6 plus 4 plus 6. And that's going to equal 10 is 16. So it'd be 16 over 8. Now we can simplify that. We can see that's top heavy. We can pull 2 whole numbers out of it. 8 will go into 16 2 times. So that's going to give us 2 more tally marks. So that is going to be 6 out of 16. Okay, do you follow with me? So we pulled out 6 whole numbers after adding all of those together, and there are 16 x's altogether. So if we simplify that, that'll simplify down to 3/8. Aha, we solved it. Good job. All right, that's all we're going to do for that particular page because we had to use part of the space for number 5, and that's okay. Let's skip that page and start right on to our homework, shall we? All right, finding fair share. This is where you have a series of fractions and you find out how many times they appear and you put them on X's on a chart. You're usually supposed to label the chart with a title and then you find out some information. So let's find out what we need to know. Number 1, which weight occurs the most often? Aha. Which weight or weights occur the most often? Let's see. We can look right here. This has 4 and that has 4. So I would have to say that 1/8, and we're measuring in capital T, which means tons. So we'll put a capital T here. And then also the 1/4 occurred equally as often. And we're going to say that it's 1/2 a ton, not 1/4, 1/2 of a ton. Now the fair share is where we add them together and find all the whole numbers. So the fair share, let's add them together, see how many whole numbers we can get. That's a whole number and that's a whole number. And then I know that 1/8 plus 1/8 is 1/4 plus another 1/8 and 1/8 is 1/4. So this right here is 1/2. And 1/4 and 1/4 is another 1/2. So all that together will equal one whole number. So I have 3 whole numbers. 3 whole numbers, and then count how many x's you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So our fair share is 3/10, and we are labeling it with capital T, which means ton. Make a line plot of the measurements on the table. Okay, you guys are pros at this. We've been doing them all afternoon. Let's go ahead and put a 0 right here and a 1 right here. Now, looking at our measurements here, I can see we have 1/2, 1/4, and 3/4, which is great because we can do that one. So here's 1/2. 3/4 would look about like that, and 1/4 goes right about there. Now we need to see how many we have of each one. So 1/4 is our smallest one. Let's do that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next one is 1/2. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Okay, the next one we're going to work on is 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh goodness, well we sense a pattern. There we go. Now we need to refer to the table to figure out what sort of fair share. Now remember, fair share, so we add them together and find how many whole numbers. So this is where we have to use our brain quite a bit. And it's kind of nice because if you take this and this, you get a whole number. 3/4 plus another 4th equals a whole number. 3/4 plus another 4th equals a whole number. And 3/4 plus another 4th equals a whole number. And the nice thing about the halves is I know that that equals a whole number and that equals a whole number. So there's 2 more whole numbers. So I have 5, 6 whole numbers. Now you count how many x's you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12 whole numbers. Now, I don't know about you, but I think we can simplify that down. It's a fraction, and we can simplify it down to 1/2. And we are measuring in pounds. So the fair share that everybody should get divided equally, if we had 12 people, would be 1/2 pound of cashews. Ooh, number 5. How would the fair share in exercise change if the table included 2 more 1/2 pound measures of cashews? Okay, so we'll just come over here and we'll add 2 more, right? So that means that it'd have a bigger number. So 2 more would mean that we would have 7. Would add another dash. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We would add another dash. So it'd be 7. And then the x's would be not 12, but 13, 14. So there'd be 14 x's. So then everybody would receive 7 out of 14 pounds. Or excuse me, 7 out of 14, which would simplify down to 1/2 of a pound of cashew nuts per person. So it didn't really change that much because the fair share would remain the same. Fair share would be the same. And the reason why it's the same is that it increased by another pound. All right, number 6. Fill in the correct circle that corresponds to the best answer. Which of the following could be used to find the amount each person received if it was divided equally? Well, it's the word we've heard a lot about, fair share. Which is the correct fair share for the measurement shown in the line plot? Let's figure it out. Let's find the whole numbers because they've already done the plotting for us. So we need to find the whole numbers. That's a whole number, so I'm giving me a tally mark. And let's see. I know that 1/8 plus 1/8, which is over here, equals 2/8, and that simplifies down to 1/4. So I can add this plus this plus this. So 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 2/4, and that equals 1/2. So 1/2 plus 1/2 is another dash. And then 3/3 is, well, another dash. So I have 3 is my whole number. Let's count the x's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then I can simplify that. So I can divide them both by 3. So that'd be 1/3. So the fair share would be 1/3 of a mile. Is what we're looking at as the fair share. All right, friends, that was an intense little chapter. Thank you so much for your hard work. Turn it in and show me your work, please.